Hello, thank you for joining me. So this is our third video in our series modeling a simple electronic meter, and what we're going to be doing in this video is showing you how to model what I would do, how I would model essentially the meter cap. So the meter cap is going to go over the meter base. The meter cap is going to have a couple windows, as we talked about in previous videos, that are going to show some of the displays and maybe some places where the buttons are going to be. And well, let's go ahead and get started on it. It's going to be in millimeters, so I opened up my millimeter template file, and this is a process we're going to follow throughout the quarters. You want to go ahead and immediately resave that in a file name of your choice and a location of your choosing, just to make sure you can find it again. So I called it my meter cap, just very simply meter cap. So let's get started. You want to think about the perspective on this thing. You want to think about the orientation of your model. And when we think about the meter, as I mentioned, it's going to be mounted onto a back plane or a back plate or in a control panel. So the line of sight is going to be horizontal, looking at the window of the thing, so you want to make sure that you model it probably on the front plane would be a good choice. Right plane maybe, but front plane probably would be best. So let's go ahead and choose front. Let's go to sketch. And what you're going to see is the origin. We're going to go up here and click on circle and just draw a circle out. So it's going to be 230 millimeters approximately. So we'll get somewhere close. You can see a little dialogue right next to the cursor. You see the circle icon and the pencil there, and you also see kind of a phantom line associated with that too, showing us the radius. And yeah, let's get close to 230. You don't have to be exact, but if you pop it in place, put a dimension on it, 230. You should be pretty good to go there. I have a lot of windows open, so this seems to be going pretty slow right now. But yeah, so that's pretty much the base of that. And what we're going to be doing with that as a feature is we're going to extrude that with, I think, a 5-degree draft to it. And then that's going to give us a little bit of taper of that meter cap as we go ahead and build it from there. So one thing I want to do with this is I want to sketch in all my geometry that's going to be associated with everything we're going to be doing with this meter. I like doing it. It's a good technique to put all your sketching elements, if you can, into a top sketch. Sometimes the top sketch will be associated with a feature. Sometimes it's just out there all by itself, and the features that follow below that refer to that sketch. It's just a quick and easy one-stop shopping sort of a bit of advice I can give you here that will help you model some very complex models. If you remember that coupler model that I showed you, it's got, I don't know, about 50 or 60 entries below that. I have a couple different sketches and sketch pictures I was using in order to model that, but we're going to save that for a future film or another film. So what we're going to be doing, now that we have the base, the very edge of our meter cap, what we're going to do is we're going to draw that little tab that's going to go on the side. So let's talk about the geometry a little bit. What I want to do with that tab, as I mentioned in the previous videos, I want to make sure that that tab actually embeds itself a bit inside of the tapered boss that we're going to be creating here in just a minute. So I'm going to make sure that I put it on the inside of that a little bit. If I were to put the tab right on the edge over here, which is the very edge of our meter cap, it's going to kind of pull away from it as that extrudes up. So I'm going to put it on the inside a little bit, and let me demonstrate what I mean by that. I'm going to go ahead and put another circle in here. And what we're going to do with this circle, if you remember what SolidWorks does, with the solid line, with a basic sketch line, it's going to do something 3D with that. But if you have reference geometry in here, if you were to turn this circle into reference geometry, such as a center line or a construction line as they used to call it, it won't regard that. But we can still use it as geometry in our model. And the way you can get that into a construction line, if you like, go ahead and click on that line. You'll see a shortcut menu up here right next to your mouse. This is the symbol you want to use. It reverts back and forth between construction geometry and a regular sketch line. And it seems to be taking its time for that. I may have to close some windows in this, but to demonstrate that back, you can revert that back too if you want to do that. Okay, there it goes. It's going a little bit faster. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to make sure, since my shell is going to be about 20 millimeters, about 2 centimeters in thickness. Might be a little bit less than that, but I want to make sure I put a certain distance between these two circles. Now let's make that about 6 millimeters. So we'll type in 6 here. It might be a little bit less than that, but we may end up changing that a little bit later. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to put that tab right onto that. So let's talk about the geometry of our whole assembly. If we're talking about the meter base up here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting a slot in the meter base up in this area, and then we're going to have a circular pattern that's going to put that slot 5 times around this. Then we're going to do the same thing with the tab. So we're going to have a slot and a tab. And the tab's going to go in there too. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be drawing that tab off to the side. If we think about the cycle here, if we take 360 degrees and divide that into 5 equal units, that comes out to about 72 degrees for each unit. But if we go one cycle, if you were to draw a center line maybe north of that, and the way you do that is you go up to the line command up here, go to the pull down arrow and pick out center line. And if you just draw that vertical, it'll be a black line, so with the blue point on top. And remember, center line can be remain underdefined at least on one end of it. So if you have a blue dot on center line or a construction line, that's okay. It'll still give you, it won't give you a minus sign here. It'll still define that as a fully defined sketch. But if you were to put another center line in here, and let's make sure we get that to the center down here, merge those 2 points together, put an angle in there, what that does is that gives us, we'll make that 72 degrees, that gives us a location where that next slot's going to be. But what we want is where the tab's going to be, so we want to have an angle in here that's about half of that. And half of the 72 is going to be 36 degrees. So we're going to put in that 36 degree angle. And there's some reference geometry for us. We don't really need this one, but just for the sake of demonstration, I went ahead and put it in there. And the way I deleted that, if you want to take a look at that, we'll change that back to 36 degrees. And I could just show you a lot of these little things as I go through them, because I kind of do them quick and instinctively, because I use this a lot. But it's called the trim entities command. And it'll trim a line as long as you just pass your cursor through it between 2 other sketch entities that might already be drawn there. Quick and easy way of doing it. So this is where the slot's going to be. This is where our tab's going to be. So we're going to go ahead and draw that tab. I'm just going to draw a line out here. We're going to make this line coincident with the center down here. We demonstrated this in class on Tuesday. And now we're going to take this line and mirror it on that center line. So if we just pick these 2 elements and go up here to mirror entities, nothing additional needs to be done. It remembers those selections. It is assuming that we want to use this as the line that we're going to be mirroring about, and it's going to make that assumption and go ahead and put that line in there. Kind of made a mistake down here. I really wanted to have that line extend down here, so I need to take my Trim Entities tool and extend that line down. And what you do, it's not only is a trim, but it's an extend also. If I extend that down here and then come back with my cursor with the left mouse button depressed, I could trim the end of that. So what I really want to do is have an arc from that point to that point on this line. So remember, this line, this arc over here, this circle, is going to represent the inside of our base extrude after the shell command. So let's go to the 3-point arc. Pick this point, slowly drag it over here to that point, and then drag your cursor down to that line. It turns orange. It's going to establish a coincident relationship between those two. So we're all set there. Let's do the same thing up here, an arc across the top. Pull that down so it has just kind of the basic shape that we're looking for. And we're going to click in this line and this arc. We're going to click in that arc, and this circle. We're going to make this concentric to each other. Finally, not finally because we have a couple other steps, but the next step is going to be a 62 millimeter distance on that. Now this might kind of dork out on you and make it, find itself way up here or maybe way down there, but just kind of drag that back into its position where it was before. Now even though this is mirrored before, what it did is it applied a symmetric relationship only between those points and not that line. But we can fix this in a couple different ways. You can pick up this line and this line and make them symmetric to each other. Or we do Control Z. We can take this line and also make that coincident with the center point of that circle. Either way, that works out pretty well. So let's put in a dimension in here. We want to make sure that the height of this is going to be 18. I've already gone through this model and I've made these choices already. But we're going to put an arbitrary dimension in there. What I did is I clicked on that arc and this circle, and it gave us that long dimension in here. We don't want that dimension really to be that long. So we're going to go over here to our Leaders tab. In our Properties Manager, we're going to make that a minimum rather than a center or a maximum dimension. Instead of 21, we want to make that 18 millimeters. So we're going to type in 18. 65 wide, 18 tall. Got all of our sketch relations in there, including the symmetric one, and it's black. It looks like it's all ready to go. So here's our tab. Here's our slot. And we're just about ready to do our extrude feature and get going on this thing. So this is kind of a long video, so I'm going to go ahead and save those things for the next videos.